At the end of the sessions tonight, you can purchase Michael Parenti's books and tapes. Some of you have already done that. I noticed the crowds back there. You can buy cookies and soft drinks. You can peruse the tables for what's happening now. And many of you have already done this. Michael has a new book coming out, Dirty Truths. It will be out in a couple of weeks. Tonight he has books, Land of Idols, Democracy for the Few, Inventing Reality, and Against Empires, and they are on sale in the back of the auditorium. We welcome Michael Parenti's clarity, humor, and passion as vitamins for the energy and wisdom we need to follow our call to nonviolence. He is not a stranger to us. We engaged in dialogue with him a few years ago. We have seen him on public access TV numerous times. We have read his books, and mostly we have heard him on KPFA. Michael Parenti is considered one of the nation's leading progressive speakers. Usually this is interpreted radical. On the problems of American democracy, U.S. imperialism, and tonight on reflections on the overthrow of communism. Let us welcome Dr. Michael Parenti.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very nice to be here. Can you all hear me? No. I don't know why. Is there a way that can be put up a little bit? Alice? The subject is a vast one, and it's a very complicated one. I always talk about clarity, wit, and passion. I'm really not interested in the wit and the passion. I am interested in the clarity, and really the burden of my lectures is information. That's really what I'm interested in, getting people to kind of think about it. But if there's some passion and wit, why not? As I say, this is a very complicated subject, and I don't pretend that I have the definitive word. What I want to give you is a sketch of it, an overview, and try to put it into some kind of perspective. And as I say, it's not the last word. And I also want to give you a lot of information about it, which I'm putting together for a new book, not Dirty Truth, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, but another one I'm doing, which will be out in the fall, called Memories of. What is the name of it? Memories of a Future Politics is the name of the book. And that might not even be the name of this talk in part. That's part of what it is. I think the overthrow, and I call it not the fall of communism, but the overthrow of communism took place, and much of the credit for this should go to the Western forces that tirelessly dedicated themselves to that task, using every means available short of outright nuclear attack. The end of communism came with remarkably little violence. The communists gave up power almost without firing a shot. Maybe the one exception was in Romania, where there were some killings. 3 deaths in Poland. Lech Wałęsa bragged, he said, we took over power, we overthrew the communists without breaking a single window. Well, that says more about his opponents than about him, really. I mean, it says something because it doesn't fit the picture that we've been given of unscrupulous totalitarians who will stop at nothing to maintain power over captive populations. Why didn't the ruthless Reds act more ruthlessly? I mean, to be sure, these regimes have repressed their opponents. During Stalin's reign, people were executed, interned, forcibly relocated. The Western estimates of the Soviet labor camp population varied widely and wildly from 3 million to 100 million, a figure recently pronounced by an academic at Claremont Institute. Well, he said 100 million victims. He didn't say they were all in the camps. As far as I can tell, those who offer such figures never reveal how they arrive at them. Many of Stalin's victims were Communist Party officials, managers, military officers, and other strategically situated individuals. Are you all getting an echo and a feedback, or am I the only one getting it here? Can't hear me. Yeah, well, I don't know what to do. There it is. Okay. There it is. Should I start all over? No, you... Don't want you to miss a word. Many of Stalin's victims were party elites, managers, military officers. They were people who were strategically situated. In time, other whole categories of people became suspect. Prosperous private property owners, or kulaks as they were called, ethnic Germans, Soviet soldiers returning from prisoner of war camps after World War II. Nobody hears this echo but me, is that it? It's driving me crazy. Well, that's boy, the sound systems are really something. I guess what I want to ask, in opening on with this thing about Stalin, is that the Gulag, with its millions of victims, if you listen to Solzhenitsyn and Sakharov, supposedly existed in the Soviet Union right down to the very last days of communism. If so, as I've asked before, where did it disappear to? That is, when the communist states were overthrown, where were the millions of stricken victims pouring out of the internment camps with their tales of torment? I'm not saying they don't exist, I'm just asking, where are they? One of the last remaining camps, Perm 35, visited in 1989 and again in 90 by Western observers, held only a few dozen prisoners, some of whom were outright spies, as reported in the Washington Post. Others were refuseniks who had tried to flee the country. The inmates complained about poor quality food, the bitter cold, occasional mistreatment by guards. I should point out that these labor camps were that. They were work camps. They weren't death camps as you had under Nazism, where there was a systematic extermination of the people in the camps. So there was a relatively high survival rate. The visitors also noted that throughout the 1980s, hundreds of political prisoners had been released from the various camps. But hundreds are not millions. Even with the great thaw that took place after Stalin under Khrushchev, when most of the camps were closed down during Khrushchev's time, there was no sign of millions pouring back into Soviet life. The numbers released were in the thousands. Where are the victims? Why no uncovering of mass graves? No Nuremberg-style public trials of communist leaders documenting the widespread atrocities committed against these millions or hundreds of millions, if we want to believe our friend in the Claremont Institute. Surely the new communist rulers would have, the new anti-communist rulers in Eastern Europe and Russia would have leaped at the opportunity to put these people on trial. And the best that the West Germans could do was to charge East German leader Erich Honecker and 7 of his border guards with shooting persons who tried to escape over the Berlin Wall. It's a serious enough crime, that is, but it's hardly a gulag. In 1955, the former secretary of the Prague Communist Party was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. A gulag criminal. No, it was for ordering police to use tear gas and water cannons against demonstrators in 1988. Is this the best example of bloodthirsty communist oppression that the capitalist restorations could find in Czechoslovakia? An action that doesn't even qualify as a crime in most Western nations, water cannons and tear gas. Are they kidding? No one should deny that crimes were committed, but perhaps most of the Gulag millions existed less in reality and more in the buckets of anti-communist propaganda that were poured over our heads for decades. Many people in the U.S. left have exhibited a Soviet bashing